We have a team and office in Canberra, but I'm actually presenting today from Ghana country here in beautiful Adelaide. So I just also want to pass on my respects to elders past, present, and also acknowledge emerging leaders, and especially welcome any Aboriginal people who are attending today's session. Lovely to have you here. So I've prepared a bit of a keynote document to guide us through the presentation. So I'll just be sharing the screen, and I'll just take you through what to expect today. So I'll just start sharing now, if that's okay with everyone. And Leanne, how are we looking?
Yep, that looks great. I can see everything.
I'll just see if I can go full screen. That should look nice and full screen and fancy. Thank you. So as Leanne said, this is about, it's primarily a conversation around brand, marketing, communications, but the way we like to think about it at Nation is really about connecting people, because that is really the role of any communication. So, but we take a slightly different approach that we've been working with community sector organisations for many years now, that works really well, which is a bit of an inside-out approach. So making sure that it's resonating with the whole organisation. So thinking holistically. So welcome to everyone. So we'll go through a bit of an introduction about, so just got a bit of an idea of who I am and where I come from. We'll be talking about brand as a connector, as I mentioned. There's three parts to that subject where brand, marketing, communications is at its most powerful within organisations, and that's identity, culture, reputation. And then at the end of it, we can just pause for questions, have a bit of a discussion. Just today is about you. It's about, I hope you get great value out of this. So, as we go through it, just write down some questions or anything that you want to talk about. We're going to have a bit of a natter at the end of it. So really briefly, we're an independent marketing communication services agency. We have a presence in Canberra and Adelaide. So really we're strategists, designers, copywriters, project managers and researchers. And we really do, our brand DNA as we define it for ourselves is relationship creation. So connecting people lies at the heart of our business. So whether that's customers to brand, employees to organisations, or supporters to worthy causes, it's all about bringing people together. And we do that through strategic creativity. So making sure that we understand organisational objectives first, developing strategy, and we've got very strategic, creative people as well. So strategy runs right through what we do. So we were established in, I've got nearly 40 years experience in the industry. Nation was founded in 2012, and we've had the privilege of working with some amazing organisations in Canberra, in South Australia and across Australia, national brands as well. So got a really diverse, I suppose, perspective. One thing that I did kind of want to share with you, just so you understand the philosophy, I think most of brand marketing communications comes down to logic and understanding human beings. So we tend to demystify a lot of the jargon and avoid a lot of the technical speak, and get to the truth. One thing that I've discovered just always works is when you're engaging stakeholders to do it in the right order. And I think sometimes organisations don't always get this right, but just make sure that leadership are on board. Make sure that your first audience is always your own people, and we want them to be in a position where they are the brand. So we've got to be reflecting their authentic perceptions as well. before we go out to the market. So just a little kind of rule of thumb to remember there. But as I said, I work in an industry which loves to create little black boxes and call everything proprietary and cover everything with jargon and buzzwords. And I like to avoid that, because I think it's ironic that the communication industry sometimes doesn't communicate very well. Ultimately, the value that we want to create for our clients in partnership is to help the organisation realise clarity, focus, and alignment. So it's really a lot of what we do is distillation. People come to us and they will have a lot of complexity in their organisations. They will have very diverse stakeholders or audiences and a lot of messages. So we really just, a lot of the time we're organising things with them, listening very carefully, because no one understands their organisations like they do. So we come in as a consultant with great humility, and we learn and we help them focus on what's important. And then the next step is to really find a point of agreement across the organisation, because I'm sure you have all experienced and value the importance of getting alignment with people so that you can actually get on with moving organisations forward. So for us, it's all about people and connection. I quite often talk about brand with, that getting it to a human level is so important, and understanding what it's like to walk in the shoes of other people, and just appreciating that diverse perspective is really powerful, and using empathy to understand what's important to them. How do we have to, what message and how we present the brand is most relevant to the different positions people are in their lives, and how we express that while still maintaining continuity for our brand. It's really important. And I just think if you, we always adopt a position of servitude, and we think about the people the brand is serving and our role in serving our client in achieving that authentic, meaningful connection, so that the organisation can achieve the great work that they do. So when I talk about demystifying branding, this is where it starts. I often think about this is where did branding, marketing, all the, when you think about all the books that have been written, how much people debate these concepts, this is where it started from. It is really just marking something, whether it's the poor old cow there being ill-treated by the cowboys back in the 1870s, or an organisation. This is where it sort of started from, was just marking something with some type of emblem so that you recognise it. And I think whenever I'm doing a workshop, and we work with a lot of people who aren't from marketing or communication backgrounds, this slide I find is really powerful in getting people in the right mindset. And it's not to emulate or to applaud the graphic design or great marketing efforts. It's really just to simplify our perception of what a brand is, and encourage people to really think about, when you see these marks, what images, what emotions, and what knowledge do they evoke? And the one I like to talk about a lot is this one. It's just some coloured circles, but I encourage people just to think about, what is that evoking when you think about the global participation, the representation of sport, the athletes, the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere, and if it's up there, people are tired when they come to work because they've been watching sport, and it's happening with World Cup at the moment, at 4 a.m. in the morning, you know. And I also use references to say that picture of an apple, you know, it used to mean a piece of fruit, still does, means technology, but I encourage people to think about, if Apple made a car, what would it look like? And you can kind of paint the picture in your head. And I think just a really good little device to use, especially when you're engaging stakeholders, to get them in a brand kind of headspace, and think about the connection you're trying to make with people, and you are trying to evoke emotional and rational responses from them. So just a little technique that I use that I thought I'd share. Ultimately, I kind of think of it as this: why do we keep persevering with this discipline? And it's just a shortcut that works across awareness, consideration, predisposition, choosing to select your organisation, or support your organisation, be a part of it, be a beneficiary of your organisation. And so it really comes back to relationship. And I think relationships are a really great way to think about it. And because you can really draw a quick parallel with any other relationships, whether you've got it's family, or whether it's your own personal relationship you have with another individual, or whether it is friends, or whether it is workplace or acquaintance, whatever. It's just always really important to bring it back to this human connection, and how people perceive you. So to assist with that task of creating connection, we think about it across a spectrum of 3 topics. Right at the core of it, it's identity. And identity, just thinking about who you are as an organisation, and the people who are the organisation, how they would define that. So they are living their truth, and that defines the organisation. So if you use that, we always start here, and then we go into the organisation with culture and get a great understanding of, how your own people feel, what it means to be a part of this organisation. What are our shared values? What are our behaviours? How do we act? What do we do? What are our achievements? What are our challenges? And all of that kind of emulates from that shared understanding and that alignment of identity. So you can really, in terms of culture, start to share that perception of who you are as an organisation from within. And it is only after you've got identity is truly authentic representation, it is reflected in the internal population's experience, that you should start then thinking about, let's go out and tell the world. And what we find is it's a really logical, common sense approach to maintaining a healthy brand, because everything aligns. It speeds up conversations. It helps everyone think more strategically, and make sure there's more agreement across the organisation. So it starts with identity for us. We do workshops. It's really based on a what, how model, what, how, why model, which anyone who is familiar with the Simon Sinek model would be very familiar with it. We flip that model upside down, because we find that is a kind of a more accessible approach to. It's easier to start with what rather than why, and then really just deconstruct the elements that form the foundations for an authentic brand story. So how that works for us is just breaking it down into value, differentiation, and purpose. So the what question is really around why would anyone transact with you? Why would they interact with you at all? What are you bringing to their life that they would go, oh yeah, that's good value, I'm in, I'll have a yarn to you. The how is very much driven by the shared values and how does that affect the unique group of people who make up your organisation. What do you do differently? How do you act? Because you're all individuals, you're a unique collective, you share values. So that's where your distinctiveness comes from. And then the why, it just goes to higher purpose. So, you know, why does your organisation exist? And we quite often in workshops will help prompt people by saying, imagine the organisation didn't exist. What is the void that remains? And that helps them think about that higher purpose. So it's the combination of these three topics that is just the elements of good storytelling. When you go, okay, I know why I deal with you. Yeah, you're different. That helps me recall your brand because we think of what's different, not just who's the best. And I really need you because you're serving this greater purpose in my life, and that's really relevant to me. Just a quick example of that was an exercise we did with Adelaide Youth Orchestras. They wanted to rebrand. So it's just a really lovely example of that I could share with you to take you through our process. So we go through that what, how, why. We get lots of language. We treat language as data. So we want to hear exactly what people say. It's got butcher's paper, you know, Miro, post-it notes, the whole cliche. That's us. But it's really an exercise in active listening and capturing language. We then go through a process of summary and distillation with and to really get to the core, the real essence of what their story is. So this is just an example of Adelaide Youth Orchestra provides opportunities, and the words in bold are straight off post-it notes. Their language. It talks about the how through the high level performances, community, and their dedication, and then the why, contributing to the impact it has on young people. So it's primarily classical based orchestra experience for young people, and it really teaches young people to value being part of a collective. So it's got self growth and achievement in it, but it's also look what we can do as a collective. So they are an arts-based organisation that are really focused on building confidence and capacity and capability in young people, which is really lovely. We then take that sentence and we divide it into a 2-word expression. As I've just described, we this is a technical piece, so this is internal, and we ended up with formative inspiration. What this does is it makes sure that we're not trying to write anything clever or it's not copywriting. We're not trying to be creative here. What we're trying to do is capture a really high concept that feels authentic to the organisation. And we don't know whether we're right. We go back to the organisation and ask them, and they usually respond, "Oh wow, that's I've never heard it said that way, but that's definitely us." So once we get that signal, we know we're on to a winner, and then we can use the essence and this and the previous little statement to guide further creative expression. We then just put together a really simple brand framework. So it's the identity on a page. So you've got your statement, you've got a statement of truth, you've got your brand essence above that. We marry it to the organisation by looking at the pillars of activity that are important to the organisation. And the more that aligns with how they report on business performance, the better. And then we put the values at the bottom of that. So you've got a really quick little snapshot in the client's language, the organisation's language, that's a quick reference. And I have been in a couple of, over the years, presenting to boards where there's been new people to the board who've kind of made right, That's what we do. Like, you know, it's all there, but it's a nice little lockup between the organisation and brand, so that brand isn't getting too abstracted and not connected to the operations, but it's also not so functional that it's just driven by the functions of the organisation. So we then take that as a blueprint. This is still internal, and then we start to think about how do we express this creatively? How do we tell the brand story? So our copywriters work off that approved blueprint with those elements to come up with a story like this one. So Adjo creates world-class opportunities for remarkable young musicians, ambitious in practice and high level in performance. We evaluate and celebrate the next generation of talent emerging from our UNESCO City of Music across 6, and off it goes. So what we're doing here is we're using persuasive language. It's not just a tick box exercise. It's not technical. What we're doing is we're drawing people in using persuasive language, as I mentioned, really trying to create the foundations for emotional connection as we tell the story. So it's got some rational, functional aspects to it, but it also celebrates the emotion and the achievement and the connection. Primarily, that's a real focus. What is the connecting moment within the relationship between the brand that represents the organisation and the individuals who will read this? So quite often our clients will use this as a single source of truth. They'll put it on the About Us page on their website, but if, for example, if they're doing CEO might be doing a keynote speech, they'll draw on this language, they'll and use it as a source to tell their story. And then in bold at the end, we put a nice little encapsulation that is acts like it shows where we're presenting a value proposition, a positioning statement for the brand, or just an invitation. So it's really just a bit of a tagline that we can then build on and tell that story. So that feeling, that story, that truth then informs the creative exercise. So this has got, you know, design, photography, creative expression. It informs brand guidelines, visual language, key messages, etc. So just a little snapshot there of how the creative is informed by that whole process. So that at the end of it, you've got a really comprehensive foundation in terms of your brand guidelines that's leaning into